Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Israel issues urgent military advisory to all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to temporarily relocate south, says they will neutralize the threat of Hamas with precision and intensity. Aid agencies say a humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding in Gaza. Health authorities say more than 7,000 Palestinians have been killed since Israel's bombardment began. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on the phone. They exchange views on the ongoing Israeli military operations in the Gaza Strip. At least 32 dead, 14 missing after a fire at the ArcelorMittal-controlled mine in Kazakhstan. The Kazakh authorities have moved to end their relationship with the multinational steel company. And a record medal haul of 111 medals by Indian para-athletes at the Asian Para Games. And the Prime Minister calls it a moment of unparalleled joy. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on the phone. The Prime Minister Modi exchanged views on the ongoing Israeli military operations in the Gaza Strip. The spokesperson for the Egyptian presidency said in a Facebook post on Saturday that the Egyptian presidential spokesperson clarified that President el-Sisi stressed on Egypt's continuation in its efforts to coordinate regional and international efforts to push towards a ceasefire. He warned of the serious humanitarian and security consequences of the ground attack on the Gaza Strip and emphasized the need for unified international action to find an immediate solution at the diplomatic level, including the implementation of an immediate humanitarian truce that saves civilian lives and allows humanitarian aid to enter the sector immediately. It's day 22 of the Israel-Hamas conflict, and a rocket smashed into the shore of Israel's southern city of Ashkelon. This is hours after Israel said that its troops had entered northern Gaza overnight and expanded military operations. The Israeli Defense Forces, or the IDF, are under orders to continue their ground offensive until further orders.
Has entered northern Gaza overnight and expanded military operations in the besieged Palestinian enclave as it steps up its assault on Hamas infrastructure. Israeli Defense Minister said that forces will continue operations targeting tunnels and other infrastructure of Hamas.
We passed a stage in the war. Overnight, the ground in Gaza shook. We attacked above the ground and underground. We attacked terror operatives of all ranks everywhere. The instructions for the forces are clear. The operation will continue until a new order.
Meanwhile, Israel's military on Saturday has reissued an urgent call for Palestinians to evacuate to the south of the Gaza Strip ahead of an impending Israeli operation. The fighter jets have attacked about 150 underground targets in the northern Gaza Strip. The Israel Defense Force on Saturday announced it had killed the Hamas commander who led the group and infiltrated Israel on paragliders on October 7th. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, in a call with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, underscored the importance of protecting civilians during operations in Gaza. This was the second call between the two leaders in 2 days. On the other hand, Hamas has pledged to confront Israeli attacks with full force. With agency inputs, Bureau Report, DD India.
On Friday, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution calling for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. India abstained from voting on that resolution since it failed to condemn the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. India joined 87 other countries in supporting an amendment introduced by Canada, which condemned the terrorist attacks by Hamas. However, that amendment didn't garner enough support to be part of the resolution. Let's look at this report.
The United Nations General Assembly has passed a non-binding resolution with overwhelming support, calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The resolution also urged access for humanitarian aid to the besieged Gaza Strip and the protection of civilians. The resolution also urged access for humanitarian aid to the besieged Gaza Strip and the protection of civilians. The vote passed with 120 countries in favor, 45 abstentions, and 14, including Israel and the United States, voting against it. A worsening humanitarian emergency affecting both the regions has sparked global apprehension. In Gaza, essential supplies like food, water, and fuel are depleting rapidly, while border disputes have disrupted the distribution of UN assistance.
The situation on the ground is catastrophic in Gaza, and it's catastrophic because there's no food, there's no water, there's no fuel. Everyone's heard what's going on in that respect. But in the case of food, we haven't been able to get our trucks in. We've gotten just a dribble of trucks in. We need to get a large amount.
6 aid trucks entered Gaza from Egypt, carrying urgent medical supplies and water purification equipment on Friday. 10 International Committee of Red Cross experts, including a war surgery team and a weapons contamination specialist, were part of the aid convoy that went through Rafah crossing. In the heart of the city, gripped by anxiety and uncertainty, there's a gathering of hope and resolve. Family and friends of Israeli hostages who have endured 20 days of anguish joined together for a vigil and protest. With a giant banner on the floor, they penned heartfelt messages pleading for the safe return of their loved ones. As the photos of the missing lay on the flyers, the pain was etched in their eyes.
I'm waiting for him every day. I'm praying to God to bring me him and everybody home. Israel is now in trauma, big trauma, but it's not about Israel and Palestinians. It's about the world. It's about the future of the world. Everybody have to look in our eyes and see the pain.
The ongoing crisis underscores the urgent need for a resolution that can bring some respite to the affected population and promote stability. The world's attention remains fixed on efforts to alleviate suffering and restore calm. Amit Mukherjee, DD India.
And our correspondent Amritpal Singh is joining us from Jaljulia in Israel. Amrit, what is the latest on the ground offensive? Is the war becoming regional?
The threat of the war becoming regional exists very much, and after they've gone in, though in a limited manner, they have sent some forces inside. They haven't gone in with the full military might. They aren't releasing details about how many infantry soldiers have gone inside. But what we hear from sources is that they have entered with some tanks, and they are being given fire cover by Israeli drones, UAVs, Israeli jets. They continue to pound targets there. 150 targets we hear in the past 24 hours alone have been hit there. The ground offensive is continuing in full steam. They also tried to do a beach landing. So they are trying to, close in from all three, land, sea, and the air, to cause maximum damage to Hamas. Now, the threat of the regional spillover exists because Hezbollah had warned them that if you go in, if your forces go in, and the civilian casualties go up, we will start pounding you from the north. I was on the Lebanon border a little while back. In fact, I'm right now on the way from the Lebanon border back to Jerusalem, where I'm staying, and I'm stopped in a place called Jaljulia. for this live broadcast, Mark. There, the situation was missiles were being hit, rocket fire was happening, most of them being intercepted by their famed Iron Dome system.
Yes.
But some rockets did manage to hit. In fact, while I was talking to you, you could see the smoke coming out. So it did manage to hit a small hill. Afterwards, we inquired, nobody was injured because those villages have been evacuated completely. So nobody is living there, and it just missed a target of a building, and it just hit the hill on the Israeli side.
Yes.
So, Hezbollah is letting that up, but we'll have to see in the coming days if, civilian casualties, which by now have crossed 7,700. So if they go up, then Hezbollah could jump in. If Hezbollah jumps in, then the fear of other non-state actors and state actors, Syria could jump in, Iran-based non-state actors could jump in. So
Yes.
that threat remains, and therefore you see heightened diplomacy to prevent that. Mark.
Yes, Amrit, also in this ground offensive overnight, 150 underground Hamas targets were apparently hit. We know that communication lines were definitely hit. You talked about the missiles fired by Hezbollah in Lebanon, which were intercepted. There are also apparently 900 U.S. troops in the region, but they don't seem to be acting as a deterrent, one can see. I mean, we put that into context for us, the larger ramifications in case apparently both the U.S. troops in Iraq and in Syria were also apparently facing some sort of attack.
That's right. U.S. Troops in Iraq and Syria are facing attack, and that's why you saw the U.S. operation yesterday, where they killed, struck Syrian military targets and killed some of their soldiers. Israel bombed Aleppo and Damascus 3 days back, the airports there, saying that they were providing arms from there to Hezbollah. So, the troops, American troops are under fire. The American administration has said that if U.S. assets are harmed, they will jump into the war and they will strike back, with force. And so right now, the U.S. is keeping a hands-off policy, is not getting its, the people on the ground involved, though it's positioned 2 aircraft carriers. Perhaps what is weighing on U.S.'s mind is that there are American nationals who are hostages with the Hamas. And what if they start executing them? They released 2 of the American nationals, and there are negotiations via Qatar going on with the Hamas. So perhaps, they're waiting for that. But if any of the non-state actors, or if the Syrian army hits U.S. assets, U.S. has vowed to retaliate in full force. So that would again, put a different spin to the whole situation, and it could escalate. So the threat of escalation from all sides looms large in this war. It, every minute the course of the war changes. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, said when he was asked about 150 targets being hit, he said the earth shook from beneath and we were above it, and the earth shook from above, and we will get into the next phase of war. Clearly, indicating that they are going to increase it in the coming days. So the U.S. troops and U.S. military assets in the region are absolutely no deterrent either, for both sides, actually. Mark.
Yes, indeed. They are going to continue with their offensive until further orders, is what we've reported. But, any update on the humanitarian aid, whether it's being allowed into Gaza? We had reports that 6, vehicles had come in on Friday.
The small glimmer of hope, and may I stress the small part of it, is that humanitarian aid is going in. The agreed was 20 trucks per day. It's been 5 days, only 6 days today, including today, only 80 trucks have gone in. So that means not every day 20 trucks go in. There are lesser trucks going in. Despite the heightened military campaign, the trucks are allowed to go through Rafah, though there have been calls by the UN saying, the UN chief they've said that the monitoring mechanism has to be relaxed because Israel is monitoring everything that goes inside, because they've said they'll only allow food, water and medicines to go in, and not even fuel. So clearly, that is creating hindrances. It's not optimal. Even if 20 trucks go in every day, according to UN, according to the UN, 200 trucks are the requirement. That is the sort of humanitarian aid that is required inside. But it's far less. It's a drop in the ocean. But the good thing is that at least is on, even while they are at each other's throats.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Amritpal Singh, for joining us from Jaljulia in Israel. He's on his way to Jerusalem. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We're going to be discussing the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza with an expert. And the EU is working on a proposal to use frozen Russian assets to try and fund aid to Ukraine.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
You're watching DD India News Hour. My name is Mark Lin, and let's continue. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said in an interview released on Saturday that Israel's bombardment of Gaza, it runs counter to international law and risks creating a catastrophe that could last decades. Lavrov made the comments, some of Moscow's most critical of Israel yet, in an interview with the Belarusian state news agency Belta.
Gaza is destroyed and 2 million residents are driven out of there, as some politicians in Israel and abroad are suggesting. This will create a catastrophe for many decades, if not centuries. Of course, we need to stop and announce humanitarian program to save the population caught in the siege. There is no water, no electricity, no food, no heat. There is nothing there.
And to discuss this subject in a little detail, we have with us Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former Indian ambassador to Jordan, well-versed in Middle East affairs. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. First, when we look at the crisis that's unfolding, it's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. From a negotiating point of view, how would one move forward to try and get aid into Gaza?
Well, the unfortunate part is that what is happening in the United Nations is quite ridiculous, frankly. I mean, you can look at this problem from two prisms, essentially, either as a historic context of the Palestinian issue, or in the causal connect, means how the Hamas terror groups attacked Israel, and Israel is attacking now or wanting to destroy Hamas. But if you are looking at these binaries, then it is very difficult to arrive at a compromise solution or eventually lead to some kind of a solution for Palestinian state. Now, this is something that we are seeing in the UN Security Council and then in the UNGA, because the resolutions are not taking into account both sides in that sense. And therefore, a leeway is being provided for continuation, conflagration of this particular war. And this is worsening the civilian situation, and this is worsening the strife for the Palestinians in Gaza, and a fear even now among the Israelis. So this kind of a situation is quite terrible. In my view, they both were points, whether it is in historic context or a causal connect, they should be taken into account. Both should arrive at this situation that it was Hamas basically which had started it off.
Right, absolutely.
But the main problem is that whatever happens, because see, this is not the first time that these kind of things, wars have happened. There are already this is the fifth one between Hamas and Israel themselves. And there have been this Palestinian thing, and there have been several other previous wars also between the Arab world and this. So now there was a situation where things were moving a little bit better. And I think that we were seeing more of rapprochement in the Middle East. And then this thing has happened, which has put everything on a halt at the moment. But primary thing is eventually is to look after the needs, immediate needs of the besieged population in Gaza, while definitely addressing the genuine concerns of the Israelis. But there is collective punishment is something that is now raising eyebrows across the international community.
Why do you think the UNGA passed this resolution sponsored by Jordan that didn't mention Hamas's attack? After all, you do mention, everyone knows that it was Hamas who attacked first. It was just a simple line that needed to be added, and it would have had the support of everybody. Just to, I mean, what was the reason not to put it in?
Well, unfortunately, the problem is that, they think one man's terrorist, other man's hero. But that is the kind of a situation or mindset that India has always opposed, frankly.
Yes.
And this is what, there has to be a zero-tolerant policy. And this is precisely what our deputy APR in the explanation of the vote said, that you cannot just be selective about it. And this was something that the state, why they did not is a situation like this, that there are possibly more than 250 hostages who are also a big lever in this war. If there is a full-scale Gaza offensive begins, then obviously there is a danger to their lives. And Hamas is saying already 50 of the hostages have been killed under the Israeli strikes. So forget about the thousands of Palestinians. Now, that could have been one of the reasons, but I think that this is precisely why when the Canadians wanted to insert this, condemning these attacks, this could not pass, actually. So you can see the global community is vertically divided today. UN Security Council is divided into P3 and P2. And so therefore, one side is you have UK, US, and France. On the other side, you have Russia and China. At the other, and frankly, in this particular UNGA resolution, you will see that the France and UK abstained. France, France supported that, and US abstained, UK abstained on this. So I think that this is something which is dividing the world now, is that the conscience for the civilian plight, which is coming in the way now.
Right, absolutely. But, we talk about the escalation that's taking place, and we did speak to our correspondent who's on the ground, and it seems to be escalating. It's becoming a regional conflict. Hezbollah is involved. Syria, Iraq are attacking U.S. troops that are stationed to, act as a deterrent. What do you think, is happening there? Would the U.S. get involved to some extent? They placed their troops there as a deterrent, and they're coming under attack.
Well, frankly, in a warlike situation, there is nothing like deterrence. Once it happens, it may happen by a mistake. It was said that the Houthis sent some missiles across the U.S. ships and they were intercepted. It happened. Now USA also, bombed some of the Hezbollah or IRGC, they call it. They have the IRGC stocks in Syria. Lebanon, Hezbollah has been attacking but still not the full front war is opened. And I think that this is something internally most of the countries are worried about. That if it really escalates further, then Iran will definitely get dragged into it, and so will the United States. And perforce, Russia and China, you'll be seeing them working on it. China has already brought in 6 of its warships in the Mediterranean. So we are looking at it that each country is trying to, and Russia is it's strongly present in Syria.
Yes.
And they have this port of Tartus and all. So you can have it escalating very fast. Therefore, it is important that these 5 major powers, at the moment at least, try to absolves themselves creditably.
Yes, and Russia is on record also as saying that Israel's bombardment of Gaza is counter to international law. It also risks, making this catastrophe last for decades, is what Lavrov has said. How would you, look at that comment, given the fact that Russia is involved for over almost 2 years now in a war in Ukraine?
Well, the problem is that it is very difficult. It's very easy to make statements and very difficult to adhere to the spirit of it. Problem is that the brute power or the superpowers, they draft their own rules everywhere. They say that this was their own security. They say their own security was endangered. They are not looking at Ukraine as an as their sort of opposition. I mean, if you see, President Putin has also talked about, he said it is not Ukraine which is doing it, it is the United States. So they are looking at this conflict in the US-Russia context. You see, that's the big difference. So therefore, here, one is seeing that the population and the non-state actor is involved in Hamas, in the form of Hamas. So they are looking at it that Hamas is a non-state actor, number one, and the people of Palestine are being subjected to this kind of a thing. So, of course, I mean, Gutteres has also gone, and most of the countries have said in the UNGA discussions that humanitarian relief supplies are a must, and they should not be prevented. There should be humanitarian corridor. Yes. Refugees should be allowed to leave and all. Now, these are prescribed in the international law. So when that situation does not happen or fructify, so obviously there tend to be some kind of a violation.
Final question, Ambassador Trighanayat. Prime Minister Modi spoke to President al-Sisi on the phone. Of course, this was the topic of discussion. We are not sure I mean, we've got the Egyptian side of what happened. What was the discussion? It was about Egypt playing a more significant role in efforts in the regional, and international efforts to bring about a ceasefire. How do you think this can be worked out?
Well, personally, I've written about it, and I have said that India is the most credible country at the moment, at least until yesterday. So that could play a very significant role, and I'm happy that Prime Minister Modi is he's spoken to President Abbas of Palestine, supplied humanitarian relief supplies. He's spoken to the Jordanian king, and now he's spoken to Egypt, which is our strategic partner. I was a bit amused when India was not invited for the Cairo summit, which Egypt had done it, because, all the countries which were there, most of them will not be acceptable to one side or the other. Yes. And India is one country, so therefore, I believe that discussion, Prime Minister has clearly spoken to him that what is the outcome of that Cairo summit, whether they can move forward, what are the... So I think that Cairo has a unique position because they are the first country which had normalized and signed a peace treaty with Israel in 1979. So they are the ones also, they have been on one side, they have been seizing in a way, enforcing the siege of Gaza for quite some time. On the other side is Israel. So there is a communication between them, and Egypt could play a role. But by itself, I have often talked about it that India could take a lead along with maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe Brazil, maybe Egypt. They are the 3 or 4 countries that can play a much greater role.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Anil Trighanayat, for shedding light on the situation in Gaza and the conflict itself and its resolution, if possible. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. 51,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. An anti-government rally on the streets of Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka. Also, Kazakh president stops investment cooperation with ArcelorMittal after a fire in a mine kills 32. Namaskar, welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. Israel issues urgent military advisory to all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to temporarily relocate south. Says that they are going to neutralize the threat of Hamas with precision and intensity. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on the phone. They exchange views on the ongoing Israeli military operations in the Gaza Strip. At least 32 people are dead, 14 missing after a fire at an ArcelorMittal-controlled mine in Kazakhstan. The Kazakh authorities moved to end their relationship with the multinational steel company. The European Union leaders have wrapped up their summit where they called for civilians in Gaza to be protected, and they vowed to continue supporting Ukraine. Although they agreed on a joint declaration, officials now face weeks of complex negotiations over the bloc's long-term budget and how the source of those funds for the longer-term commitments in Kiev are going to come about. Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The situation in the Middle East may have been top of the agenda, but it was by no means the only important issue. EU diplomats made clear that nothing would distract the bloc from supporting Ukraine. Most member states weren't too bothered by Slovakia's new prime minister saying his country would stop sending weapons to Ukraine. One EU diplomat told me that the announcement doesn't matter because Slovakia has already sent everything it had. And more money will be sent from the EU to Ukraine. Some of this cash will come from profits made from the more than $200 billion in Russian assets seized by the European Union. Beyond the war in the Middle East and the war on the EU's doorstep, the 27 also got to work on resolving two of its most contentious disputes. The first one was a brief discussion on migration. The second, a robust debate on topping up the EU's long-term budget. Both of these tricky topics remained unresolved and will be tackled again in December at the next EU Council meeting. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
The leaders of France, Germany and Italy called on Serbia to deliver a de facto recognition of Kosovo, which declared independence in 2008, but which Belgrade has continued to regard as its province. In a statement the day after holding talks with both sides, the French President Macron, the German Chancellor Scholz and the Italian Prime Minister Meloni said that it was time for the Balkan neighbors to deliver on previous commitments. Their move follows growing international concerns that the former wartime foes could return to open conflict following a series of violent incidents in recent months. Much of the tension has focused on northern Kosovo, where ethnic Serbs form a majority. The rest of Kosovo is overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian. In their statement, Macron, Scholz and Meloni repeated long-standing calls for Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti to establish an association of Serb-majority municipalities in the north, giving local Serbs a degree of self-government. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Saturday urged countries participating in the G7 trade ministers meeting to enhance collaboration on a regulatory framework to facilitate cross-border trade. The Group of 7 trade ministers meeting was held in Osaka in Japan. India's Commerce Minister posted on X concluded a productive day with insightful discussions at the working dinner of G7 and outreach countries in Sakai. The Union Minister has reiterated India's firm commitment to free and fair trade, balancing equitable global growth with sustainable development goals. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Gutteres is paying an official visit to Nepal from October 29 to November 1 at the invitation of Nepal's Prime Minister. This is Gutteres' first visit to Nepal since taking office as the UN Secretary-General on the 1st of January 2017, and his second Nepal visit, as he visited Nepal in May of 2007 as the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. The key agenda of his visit to Nepal is climate change and ways to mitigate its effects on livelihoods, Nepal's peace process and also the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The UNSG will is going to visit other parts of Nepal as well. He's going to visit the Everest base camp and the Annapurna base camps to see the impact of climate change. He will also be visiting the birthplace of Gautam Buddha in Lumbini. The visit is also going to see the Secretary General call on the President of Nepal. 49 migrants were rescued by an NGO vessel off the Italian coast, and 4 others were found dead. CI-4 rescue ship, it found the migrants in a rubber boat at sea. After Alarm Phone, a charity that picks up calls for migrant vessels in distress, reported a maritime emergency. CI says that the Libyan Coast Guard vessel was already on site when their crew arrived and urged the charity vessel to leave the scene. Among the migrants was a pregnant woman who was fighting for her life and 3 people who were unconscious. So according to CI, this information is, and Italy then instructed the CI-4, they instructed them to proceed to the port of Vibo, Valencia, after medical evacuation to disembark the remaining rescued migrants. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday virtually distributed more than 51,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits in various government departments and organizations under what's called the Rozgar Mela, or the job fair. This job fair is being held at 37 locations across India. Prime Minister Modi also addressed the appointees on the occasion, and he said that this job fair is proof of his government's commitment to the youth of the country.
देश के अलग अलग राज्यों और केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों में आयोजित होने वाले रोजगार मेले युवाओं के प्रति हमारे कमिटमेंट का प्रमाण है। हमारी सरकार युवाओं के भविष्य को ध्यान में रखकर मिशन मोड में काम कर रही है। हम न सिर्फ रोजगार दे रहे हैं, बल्कि पूरे सिस्टम को पारदर्शी भी बनाए हुए हैं, जिससे नियुक्ति प्रक्रिया पर युवाओं का भरोसा बना हुआ है।
Let's take a look at other stories making news in India. The Indian Parliament Lower House Ethics Committee has now asked the Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament Mahum Moitra to appear before it on November 2 in connection with an alleged cash for query scandal. The new date has been communicated to Moitra after she sought more time to appear before the panel after having been told to give her oral evidence in the matter on October 31. The National Institute of Technology, Hamirpur in Himachal Pradesh, hosted its 14th convocation ceremony. The Indian Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Anurag Thakur, graced the event as the chief guest. During the ceremony, degrees were conferred upon 1,265 students of the institute. Food grain production during the current Kharif season is expected to cross 1,485 lakh metric tons. A lakh is 100,000. This is according to estimates released by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. The Ministry of Coal in India has announced the Commercial Coal Mining Initiative. The scheme removes restrictions on the sale and utilization of coal, along with provisions for financing coal mines. In Bangladesh, a police constable was killed and at least 41 policemen were injured in clashes between law enforcers and the BNP Jamaat men in Dhaka's Motijil, Kakrel and Naya Paltan areas. The main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party took out this grand rally in the Naya Paltan area of Dhaka. They were pressing one point of demand. The BNP is pressing for the resignation of the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government and handing over the power to a non-partisan government to hold the next general election, which is due in January of 2024. The ruling Awami League also staged a peace rally at the south gate of the Baitul Mukarram National Mosque, around 1.5 kilometers away from the BNP rally in Dhaka. Dhaka's Naya Paltan turned into a battlefield following clashes between the BNP men and members of the law enforcement agencies on Saturday afternoon, centering the party's scheduled rally. Following the clashes, the grand rally of the BNP was suspended halfway through the program. Currently, border guard Bangladesh members are deployed at Kakrel Church crossing. This is according to UNB reports. In a tragic incident, at least 32 people have died and 14 remain missing after a mine fire in Kazakhstan on Saturday. The operator of the mine, ArcelorMittal, which is ArcelorMittal Temirtau, which is the local unit of that Luxembourg-based company, 206 of 252 people of the mine were evacuated, according to ArcelorMittal, and 18 people had been sought for medical attention. But the Kazakh president, Tokayev, expressed his condolences to victims' families and declared a national day of mourning on October 29. He's ordered his cabinet to stop investment cooperation with ArcelorMittal Temirtau.
On behalf of the government, I express condolences. This is a tragedy, I understand this. That is why I came here. We will be taking measures, including assistance to the families of the victims. I gave orders to stop cooperation with the investment company. We have seen different companies here, good ones, not so good ones, but this company turned out to be the worst in our history from the point of view of cooperation with the government and the enterprise. Now we will think of taking a decision in regards to the enterprise itself.
In Australia's Queensland, authorities on Saturday advised thousands of residents to flee as bushfires have destroyed at least 30 homes. These fires have persisted in endangering rural towns. More than 35 bushfires were burning on Saturday in Queensland. Australia faces a high risk of bushfires this season after the onset of the El Nino weather element associated with extreme events such as wildfires, cyclones and droughts. Queensland's Fire and Emergency Services issued an emergency bushfire warning on Saturday, urging residents to leave immediately. A year after the deadly Halloween crush in South Korea, the popular nightlife district of Itaewon in Seoul remained quiet on Saturday, with the painful memories of the disaster still fresh in the minds of many people. Young people opted for other areas to feel the festivities, while flowers and posters mourning their victims, mostly in their 20s and 30s, replaced the usual Halloween ornaments in the alleys that house the district's hottest nightclubs and bars. People in costumes were hardly seen, and streets were eerily quiet for a Halloween weekend. In place of people looking for the festival mood were mourners who visited Itaewon to offer condolences to the victims. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Delhi's air quality is in the very poor category. The UPI has transformed the way Indians transact, empowering millions. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hails the performance of Indian para-athletes, calling it a moment of unparalleled joy. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. On Saturday, Delhi's air quality has deteriorated to the very poor category, and it's expected to worsen further because of unfavorable meteorological conditions and a combination of emissions from stubble burning and local sources of pollution. The Commission for Air Quality Management, a statutory body responsible for actively implementing the pollution control plan, known as the Graded Response Action Plan, or GRAP, has instructed authorities in the National Capital Region to take measures to control emissions. Tapas Bhattacharya spoke to Arvind Nautiyal, who is a member secretary of this commission. Let's listen.
Is Arvind Nautiyal, the member secretary at the Commission for Air Quality Management in Delhi NCR. Sir, currently the scenario in Delhi as well as in NCR is that air quality is at this time is poor quality. It is expected to turn into very poor in the next few days.
This year, till October 28th today, we have just had only one particular day wherein the AQI touched more than 300 points, which has not been the case in the previous years. As a preventive measure, as a proactive measure, we have already invoked the GRAP stage 2. For instance, it's about intensifying mechanized road cleaning, then collection of dusts, adherence of standards in the industries, adherence to the fuel lists, prevention of open biomass burning, waste burning, and the miscellaneous burnings that we witness generally in this season. And of course, there are many other factors.
Right. Stubble burning cases, especially in Punjab, is still quite high in comparison to other states in Haryana, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi. What is Commission doing to address that issue?
What we did was we developed a framework in due consultation with all stakeholders, including the central government, state government agencies, developed a framework along which the action plan needs to be developed for prevention, control and abatement measures for stubble burning.
You heard the member secretary talk, giving out a detailed list of measures that have been taken by the Commission to improve the air quality, not just in Delhi, but the whole of Delhi NCR region. And it is expected to bear fruit. In fact, it is bearing fruit as we speak, though a lot has to be done in the next few days to keep the level of air quality at a good level. With camera person Shambhunath Mishra and lighting assistant Vicky Rajput, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
The Unified Payment Interface has emerged as a game changer in India's quest for digital future. But by enabling seamless, secure and inclusive transactions, this UPI has transformed the way Indians transact, empowering millions and also driving economic growth. Here's more.
So you see, if you are buying a 10 rupees tea, you can make the payment through your phone. This UPI or this particular code, you can scan and you can make the payment. We give you this special story on how India's UPI system is changing the whole gamut of infrastructure, especially the digital public infrastructure in the country. India's unified payment interface is reshaping the nation's digital landscape with its secure and inclusive transactions, propelling economic growth. In the fiscal year 2023, UPI witnessed a staggering $1.7 trillion in transactions, making it a global favorite. Japan, Singapore, UAE, France, and UK are keen to adopt UPI. Recently, France, United Arab Emirates, and Sri Lanka have joined this digital revolution, embracing India's payment technology. UPI's entry into France marks its foothold in Europe, while its presence in Sri Lanka and UAE strengthens India's economic ties with these nations. This global expansion of UPI also signals promising prospects for India's fintech sector.
Because of the instant and seamless nature, a very large proportion of Indian consumers are able to now make payments very easily and smoothly. Second, UPI takes away the reliance on cash, and hopefully over time it will bring down the level of cash in the country and also formalize the economy. And third, a lot of the innovation that is being built in India in financial services is being built on top of UPI as the fundamental rails. So a lot of banks and fintechs and also non-financial service companies are actually innovating on top of UPI to provide better services to Indian consumers.
All of us in India underestimate what change in last 10 years India has brought about. In fact, one of the most phenomenal biggest change that we see all around is that from small to large merchant, everybody in nook and corner of everywhere in the country is taking now mobile payments. The best part about it is that UPI, the innovation of India, is now the pride of India. Everywhere you go, there is a merchant who is ready to take, with the government scheme of 0% India charge to small merchant, makes it even incredible, small or large, online or offline, everybody is happily taking UPI payments. In fact, the scale and the impact of UPI is heard globally.
In 2022, the sector attracted $4.8 billion in funding and is anticipated to grow into a $2 trillion industry by 2030. UPI, initiated in 2016, has played a pivotal role in India's fintech narrative, evolving from just 1 million transactions in October 2016 to surpassing 10 billion transactions. Furthermore, internationalization of UPI aligns with Indians' substantial overseas spending, which amounted to $10 billion between April and December 2022. This expansion holds great potential for fueling India's economic growth. Tapush Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
The government of India has provided immense support to para-athletes, and the result has been phenomenal. The Indian para-athletes won a record number of medals at the recently concluded Hangzhou Asian Para Games. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated the sportspersons on this grand achievement. Here's a report.
In a historic feat, Indian para-athletes have concluded their campaign at the Hangzhou Asian Para Games with an impressive tally of 111 medals. This achievement marks a significant milestone, as it is the highest number of medals India has ever secured in any major international multi-sport event. With this, India has outshone its previous records, clinching a staggering 39 more medals than in 2018 edition of the Games. The success of Indian para-athletes can be attributed to a combination of hard work, government support and world-class infrastructure. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated the para-athletes for their remarkable achievements.
नेशनल इंटरनेशनल खेलों में हमारे खिलाड़ी ऐतिहासिक प्रदर्शन कर रहे हैं। ये उपलब्धियां हमारे देश के स्पोर्ट्स लैंडस्केप में भी बड़े बदलाव और विकास का संकेत है।
One of the key pillars of this achievement is the Target Olympic Podium scheme, which provides elite athletes world-class training, exposure and financial support. 46 top athletes participated in the 2023 Para-Asian Games and 36 won medals. The implementation of sports science has also played a crucial role, helping athletes reach their full potential and perform at the highest level.
Thanks very much, Government of India, Sports Authority of India, Paralympic Committee of India, Badminton Association of India, Uttar Pradesh government and every state government who has promoted para-badminton as a promising and emerging sports. Keep on supporting us. Thank you. Jai Hind.
However, it's not just financial support that has fueled this success. Emotional backing from the government has played an equally significant role. The athletes have expressed their gratitude for the financial aid and the opportunities provided to them by the government.
मैं टॉप्स का खिलाड़ी हूं और मैं टॉप्स के अंडर रहकर साई बेंगलोर में और इंटरनेशनल यूएस में ट्रेनिंग कर पाता हूं और मैं इस गोल्ड मेडल के लिए मैं साई टॉप्स और पीसीआई और ओजीक्यू का दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूं कि उन सभी ने मेरा मिलकर सपोर्ट किया।
The Indian government's steadfast commitment to sports development has yielded exceptional results, transforming India into a formidable force in the world of para-athletics.
Well, India has triumphed in 5 consecutive matches with their batting order in outstanding shape and bowling also being the highlight. But England has only managed to win once in the last 5 games and is grappling with confidence issues. All signs point towards an Indian victory. But and if India can pull it off against England, who are the defending champions on Sunday, it would be their first victory in 20 years against the defending champions. Abhishek Mahajan reports.
India and England have displayed contrasting strategies in the ongoing World Cup, resulting in different outcomes. While England are striving to advance in the tournament, India appears set to dominate the league stage with 5 wins in 5 games so far.
हर प्लेयर का अलग रोल रहता है, जो भी रोल और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दिया गया है वो अच्छे से निभा रहे हैं और टीम इज विनिंग, सो वी नॉट रियली वरीड, बट जब भी जिसको भी मौका मिलेगा आई एम श्योर दे विल पुट देयर हैंड्स अप.
England, the winners of the tournament 4 years ago, are struggling to survive. England, known for their aggressive white ball cricket, has seen global success in shorter formats. However, this aggressive approach has faltered on Indian pitches and the defending champions are on the brink of a humiliating exit. But the Indian camp is not taking the 3 lines lightly. India entered the match with a string of victories, boasting a strong batting lineup and standout bowling. It will be interesting to see whether Rohit Sharma persists with the winning combination that defeated New Zealand or Ops Ashwin in the Lucknow wicket, which has traditionally helped the spinners. The two teams have locked horns 8 times. England have won 4 games, while India emerged victorious in the 3 matches. 1 game resulted in a tie in 2011 World Cup. In their recent 10 home encounters against England, India has emerged victorious in 7. If India secures a win, it will mark their first World Cup victory over the defending champions in 20 years.
India are on song with 5 wins in 5 games, and 3 lions have an absolute mountain to climb from here. Both these sides come into this match with opposite ends at the leaderboard, and both teams are desperate for a win, but for a different reason. With cameraman Rajesh Rikhe, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Lucknow's Ekana Stadium for DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X and on Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.